of former government officials who worked in these investigations programs, supposedly investigations, that explained it all away, discredit witnesses, discourage whistleblowers.
Usually the easiest people to manipulate like that tend to be intellectual elites. And then that just sort of trickles down to the rest of the population. Like that Wall Street Journal thing. You know, you didn't need any evidence to debunk it. You could just read what they wrote and go, that's crazy. Like, who would believe that, like, how many, say, thousands of intelligence operatives were hazed into believing that there were UFO programs, and they somehow managed to retire without ever being disabused of this prank and live their lives in fear of incarceration or death. As a comedian, one thing I know about pranks is they're no good unless you tell the person you pranked.
That crazy Area 51 story was a good one, too. That was a good prank, is that an Air Force officer handed out some fake UFO photos to a bar owner, and that's what started that whole story going.
Yeah, and everyone knows the reach that a bar owner in the middle of the desert.
I saw them trying to set up the foundation that anybody that comes forward as a whistleblower now can't be trusted because they were just hazed. That's what I saw.
I'm also curious, how did they go around hazing military officials in every other country on Earth?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Russia, Brazil,
Chile.
Congress. I mean, that's what's happening in September, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. I've seen little posts here and there, and I do want to bring up a couple things. So first and foremost is Senator Rounds should ask to see Lockheed's Plant B6 complex in Burbank, California, 2300 Empire Avenue. And then I would like them, maybe he should go ask to see Northrop Grumman's Plant 42 in Palmdale, which is 3520 East Avenue, M Street. I mean, look, the addresses are there.
This is Weaponized. I'm George Knapp, joined by my friend and colleague Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Well, good. You can see I'm lounging on the beach in Fiji. I'm waiting for them to deliver me a Mai Tai. I told you I was off this month, right?
You did.
And here I am. Yeah, here I am.
Telling me you were off this month.
Yeah, I'm having a great vacation doing Weaponized. Fiji looks a lot like my office, doesn't it?
You can get one of those backgrounds so at least it looks like you're in Fiji. Yeah, man, look, you know what you signed up for. You made friends with me, and I'm going to pull you when I can. So here we are.
Just when I think I'm out. You know that line. So a lot of stuff percolating. Going to be a big September. So we thought we might get together and talk about a couple of things that are going on and people we've been talking to sort of in advance of, I think, as you described, before the storm. What is going on? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so there's just been a lot that's been going on. The last time we were kind of doing more of the current and up-to-date episodes, I want to remind people we obtained and released Air Force footage. It was a passive capture of what they called a disc UAP that is now out into the public. People have had a chance to look at it, analyze it, do FOIA requests, that sort of thing. Again, this is still currently classified as a UAP and a disc, and it was just one way for us to show people what our government sees as a UAP. And then, lo and behold, the next week, to remind people, Dustin Slaughter had this huge win. The journalist Dustin Slaughter, he had done this. He basically sued the United States Air Force and CENTCOM and all these people, and he's like, give me footage of UAP. And sure enough, he got the Mosul orb, and it was exactly like you and I described. I mean, people said it was a pothole and all this weird stuff, but clearly what we described was correct, and now the public gets to have it and gets to analyze it. And I've seen a lot of analysis on it. Again, it's a defined UAP currently to this day, and that is why they gave it to Dustin Slaughter when he asked and sued the government for military filmed UAP footage. So those things happen, which was kind of neat.
It's great to have a FOIA warrior who's willing to go to the mats. Finally, we got somebody who knows about FOIA will go all the way to get this kind of information. It's great, huh? Yeah.
Litigation, man. And you know what? It's the tip of the spear. I do believe that, within about a week, you're going to hear some more success that Dustin Slaughter has had. And it's just a game of inches, inch by inch. I really think he's doing it right. He's exemplary. He's helping other people that get kind of stuck in the FOIA process that I've connected him to. So I'm really looking forward to see what fruits that yields.
Yeah, I got a lot of people who reached out and said, hey, I want to join the effort. And I sent those on to Dustin. I hope he's putting together a good team who can help him. I know that there are hints of some other object, a spectacular kind of an incident that is being pursued. How far do you want to go in describing that?
Oh, I can't. It's not my position to do it. We'll wait for Dustin to get there, and I'm sure that we will, interview him about it. Again, it's a new piece of evidence that Dustin will go forward with.
So one of our favorite people in the world, you and I, is Dave Foley, an actor, comedian. He's been around. He was initially pretty skeptical about the UFO topic, and then he kind of came around. He changed things. We got to spend some time with him at that infamous event up near Area 51, Storm 51, and actually have interviewed him on this program before. Longtime listeners of Weaponized might recall that we interviewed him one time from the set of this TV show where he was wearing an eye patch. He was getting made up at the time we talked to him. Remember that one?
I do. It was great. Yeah.
We had a chance to sit down with him up at the Weaponized cabin, way up in the snow level up there a couple of weeks ago. It was right after all the unrest in L.A. and around the country. A lot of things were going on. Sat him down to sort of catch up with him, what's going on in his life, and talk about UFO issues, where his head is on some of the current events. And we recorded.
I think we should play that, and then I want to get back to what's going to happen in September. So let's play the Foley interview and come back to what's going to happen in September. This is my good friend and brother, the infamous David Foley, who was a UFO skeptic, and he talks so much shit about UFOs in his comedy. He thinks he's funny in his comedy that, after he saw one, then I said, you gotta repent. This is part of his repenting process. Dave Foley, do you have UFO fatigue? What's going on?
I wrote one anal probe sketch in 1990.
And you're still paying for it.
Yeah. And I was not a skeptic about UFOs. I just wasn't as deep as I am now. I believe they were real.
Would you say you're balls deep now? Or?
Now, oh my God, I'm drowning.
Will you introduce the actual guest of why we're filming?
Oh, the real, yeah, sorry. Everybody, this is Joey Ramone. He's some sort of a dog. Science is mystified by what kind, but this is my dog Joey.
So does Joey believe that the LA riots are as bad as they say?
Well, Joey and I have been out reporting on the streets for Instagram, and we are recovering just how horribly dangerous it is out there.
On the day we were recording, LA is in flames. Am I correct? It looked like their bomb exploded there.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is going on in my old neighborhood downtown. I used to live 4th and Main, just down the street from City Hall, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, I can't recognize that neighborhood.
You're being sarcastic.
Yeah, because when I lived there, there was not 3 Waymo cars on fire. So yeah, it's a disaster. It's a beyond any human understanding. And I guess I just want to say to the people who own the company Waymo, my heart's with you.
So they're lying about this LA situation, and they're lying about UFOs. Is that?
They're lying about There's like, as I said, like, man, when the Lakers won the championship, there was far more damage in downtown Los Angeles than this. And I've been in pretty much every huge protest in LA going back to the Clinton administration. I've marched against when Clinton wanted to bomb Iraq. I went out and marched, and if you remember, he didn't bomb Iraq. You're welcome. And then when George W. Bush wanted to bomb Iraq, I marched again, and apparently not hard enough. But I was part of I was out there for the Black Lives Matters protests. I was out there for hands up, don't shoot protests, and all of that, and literally tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people marching in LA. And without National Guard, without
U.S. Marines.
U.S. Marines, yeah. without a bunch of idiots shooting rubber bullets at journalists. So yeah, things are fine.
I'll think a rubber bullet would be way better than a real one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, that's horrible, man.
Yeah. But again, now it's nice to take a break from that and just help to dispel the horrible stereotype that ufology is all a bunch of old white guys.
and dogs.
Yeah.
Back in the dawn of time, you were on one of the earliest weaponized episodes.
Yes.
And then there is another episode where we called you in a desperate moment, and you were on the set of Fargo.
Yes.
You had an eye patch in the makeup trailer getting ready for a scene. That's not on video, though. We don't have that.
just audio, yeah. And that was during, as you called it, Balloonapalooza?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, during the Chinese balloon nonsense. Yeah.
I wish we had that video because it's classic now. You went on in this series in Fargo. That was a memorable character, a very successful season for that.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was Danish Graves.
Danish Graves, that's right.
Yeah.
So, we've had a chance to have a lot of conversations about UFOs on this program and then privately, just being friends. And you guys had a sighting not too far from the cabin here up in the mountains, right?
Yeah, after I'd done the first... after the first time I'd been on Weaponized with you guys, then hanging with Jeremy, and we saw a very distinctly a large orangey gold craft.
You were in by that point.
Oh
anyway.
yeah.
How did it reinforce what you already thought? Did it change it in any way?
And part of it was the feeling of, oh no, now people are just going to say, oh, he's only saying this because he's a UFO nut who claims he's seen a UFO. But it did definitely. It removed any lingering doubt I had that this was real. When you see something like the thing we saw, and this, I remember, and this, always the case when you describe it. I remember someone said, "Well, what you probably saw was the interior lighting of the wheel well of a passing jet." And I'm going, well, I think I would have heard the jet part, and but it's like, so you get all these insane explanations.
We've been talking, of course, for years about the idea that the closer you get to the goodies, the truth, physical evidence, the harder the pushback becomes. And it seems like now we're in the Empire Strikes Back kind of phase of this thing, because there is pushback, propaganda, journalism organizations that get sucked into this to report for whatever reason. There's nothing to it. It's all explainable. Former government officials who worked in these investigations programs, supposedly investigations, that explained it all away, discredit witnesses, discourage whistleblowers, dismiss physical evidence, visual evidence. Give me your take on that. Do you think that beyond just the UFO public, that the general public is in danger of saying, I'm walking away, it's all nonsense? Or is there a broader acceptance that something really is going on, and we're not going to accept the bullshit explanations for it?
Well, I think there's a real, I'll call it a psychological vested interest in a lot of people, and sadly, particularly amongst journalists, who, if you give them any sliver of an out, any tiny grain of, no matter how ludicrous it is, of an opportunity to not think about this, then that's what they'll do, because those are the people that the Robertson panel has worked on the best. They're, and again, I go back to Noam Chomsky's talking about manufacturing consent. You don't have to censor, you don't have to monitor, because all you have to do is create an environment where people will censor themselves and monitor themselves. And that's what they've done. They create the environment where only crazy people talk about UFOs. And so then, and usually the easiest people to manipulate like that tend to be intellectual elites. So, and then that just sort of trickles down to the rest of the population. So I think, like like that Wall Street Journal thing, you didn't need any evidence to debunk it. You could just read what they wrote and go, that's crazy. Like, who would believe that? Like, how many, say, thousands of intelligence operatives were hazed into believing that there were UFO programs, and they somehow managed to retire without ever being disabused of this prank. and live their lives in fear of incarceration or death, for the rest of their lives, all because of a prank. And I, as a comedian, one thing I know about pranks is they're no good unless you tell the person you pranked. Like, it just, there's no point in it.
That's a great point.
Yeah, if you don't say to the people, there's no UFOs after the prank, then you didn't do the prank right.
That crazy Area 51 story was a good one, too. That was a good prank, is that an Air Force officer handed out some fake UFO photos to a bar owner, and that's what started that whole story going.
Yeah. Because
different.
How'd that work out?
You were there.
Yeah. And also, it's like, and everyone knows the reach that a bar owner in the middle of the desert that who has probably a customer base of mostly people from Area 51, and other than that, maybe a few hundred people that live within the next several hundred square miles.
Well, I'll tell you, if you really wanted to discourage attention on, say, an airplane that's being tested out there that was invisible radar, the great way to get the Russians and the public to not look at it is to say, we've really got flying saucers, anti-gravity, and that's alien tech, because nobody's going to pay attention to that. They'll just walk away from it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, a lot of people don't know that when they were testing the U-2 bomber, they would dress it up as a flying saucer. Yeah. And they would force it to fly right-angle turns at Mach 5.
Yeah, the U-2 looks just like a flying saucer.
Yeah.
That's why people would see it hovering over their house and landing in schoolyards. Oh, damn, look, that looks like an alien craft.
And it's like people say, well, there's tons of dark programs. And yeah, there are. But every single thing that's come out of every dark program, every aircraft that has come out of it, has been an incremental improvement on what the Wright brothers flew. And operates on the exact same physics that the Wright brothers mastered.
Plus, eventually, we get to know about it.
Yeah.
So a program that's a crashed vehicle in Roswell, we should know about it by now if it was ours, and even the Tic Tac 21 years ago.
Yeah, and if we've had craft that can defy gravity and fly at 30 times the speed of sound, and could get us to Mars and the moon in seconds, it's really irresponsible that we've been putting human beings on top of giant chemical rockets.
Like the Challenger?
Yeah, that was a really irresponsible thing to do.
We wouldn't have needed NASA. We wouldn't have needed even the atomic program, if we had tech like this. I wish we did. I got kind of sad when I found out that we don't. And if we do, it's super rudimentary, reverse engineering. To get kind of serious here, I am really pissed by that article for a specific purpose. So they said, oh, yeah, we've had people come in, or maybe this was the interview with interim director Tim Phillips, but he was like, oh, we've had people in really scared for their lives, or they're revealing something secret, but it was a hazing thing. Bullshit. Because the people that testified in front of Congress, they're not all saying the same story. We know about hazing stuff that goes on in military. You could play a joke on somebody, then you let them know it's a prank. We're talking about people with different sets of information testifying in front of Congress, and then people who haven't yet publicly testified, but that we know went to AARO and exposed to them certain reverse engineering programs with high detail of energy sources and that kind of thing at different locations. They're not repeating the same hazing story. They're telling them things that they've had their brake lines cut over this issue, that kind of thing. We're going to hear more about that soon, but I'm just saying, if it was like one hazing thing, then everybody would have a similar story. That's not the case. And these people's lives, they are afraid, and they should be afraid for what they've been exposed to, even if it was spillage. So that really made me mad, because if I'm them and I'm watching this, how AARO comes out and does this, they're mocking what I have gone through lengths to go and talk to the government about. So that really actually made me angry that they would put people in that position and kind of mock that they've just been hazed when we know that's not the case.
Yeah, and if most of what's in that article is true, there's a lot of people that should be being rounded up and tried and thrown in prisons now. So where's that story? Where's the follow up on that? Where is the Wall Street Journal going to cover the investigation into the people who did these hazings, the people who
perpetrated a slap on the
disinformation
American,
on the
the
public,
American public or
illegally.
even service members. Right.
Yeah.
It's a throwaway piece of shit garbage thing. I mean, sure, I'd hate somebody too about UFOs if I had any knowledge.
Yeah. And I also like, certainly the notion that they could truck in like the Malmstrom Air Force Base, that you could truck in a huge amount of equipment, pour concrete to stand it up on, and I'm guessing, I've been out by Area 51 with you guys. There's signs there that say lethal force is authorized if you go beyond this point.
And you're by a nuclear base, and
but I'm guessing those signs are somewhere around Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Right, or Oscar flight. I was told it's just away from.
Yes, it's not on the base itself, but I'm guessing around
nuclear silos.
Where the nuclear silos are, I'm guessing.
Well,
then it's and it's not like Malmstrom's the only incident.
That's my point. So they take one thing. It's like what the debunkers did. They take one thing you can focus on. It's round, so it must be the sun. They take one thing to explain away all of the nuclear stuff. It's so preposterous on its face value, but it does its job with people who never look deeper than an inch.
Yeah,
which is most people. I remember CIA historian in the mid-90s comes out with this ridiculous assertion that about 50% of all UFO cases from the 50s and 60s was us. It was our spy planes. As we're talking about, the U-2 does not look like a flying saucer. It does not hover over people's homes, as saucers have been reported. It doesn't land in backyards and stuff. And they said, yeah, it's true. It's us. It's the U-2. It's the SR-71. Planes that were created to not be seen by us. I can see there might be some cases where commercial pilots or cargo planes flying way high up see something go whoosh. But, those planes were not, they were tested at Area 51, but not based there. People don't see those things take off from Guam or, the far-off bases that they were. They don't see them in the air. The Russians would see them in radar but couldn't reach them. Those weren't. There's no possible way that they were responsible for 50% of all UFO sightings in those years. And there were some pretty good studies done by the likes of Bruce Maccabee, who said, show us an example of one case where a U-2 was mistaken for a UFO. It didn't happen.
No.
It was a preposterous thing to say 50%. Now they're saying basically all of them. The claim is all of them are explainable as U.S. tech. Well, where the hell is the crash object from Roswell, that was our tech, that was anti-gravity? When are we going to see that? Or the Tic Tac, or what flew over Washington in 1952, was chased by planes, was seen on radar, and then poof, was gone. If that's our tech, when the hell did they break that stuff out? It's ridiculous.
What I saw was more of a setup against whistleblowers, like big picture. What I noticed when I watched this is they were setting precedent for saying that anybody that testifies to having any knowledge about UFO stuff, they were just hazed. The thing is, it's so disparate, is that the word, where it's separate, all the different accounts and how people come to us and we get and they get in front of Congress and that kind of thing. It's not one Air Force hazing thing. It's so separate, all of these accounts and information that come in. But what I saw them trying to set up the foundation that anybody that comes forward as a whistleblower now can't be trusted because they were just hazed. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
I'd love to see an example of a U.S. Air Force officer brought into a special program who was told that story.
Signed an NDA.
And believed it. Signed an NDA and then believed it for the rest of their career. That does not exist. I can't believe that anyone would continue to believe that for 30 years after they've been tricked by other guys in their unit or something like that.
And they mentioned gravity engine in that as part of the hazing thing. The problem is that some of the people that actually are scared for their life, and I know testified to AARO because they reported to us when they realized it was a counter intel thing, is that it wasn't about that. It was about other things. So it just doesn't add up. But I hope that'll be...
I'm also curious, how did they go around hazing military officials in every other country on Earth?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Russia, Brazil,
Chile, Mexico.
I was reminded of something that really did happen to future U.S. Air Force officers. It's at the U.S. Air Force Academy in the 1960s. They had a physics textbook that was teaching our best and brightest future officers. This is not hazing. This is not a joke. was teaching these future Air Force officers, Joint Chiefs of Staff types, and this physics textbook had a chapter on aliens. And it said, in the course of your career as an Air Force officer, you're probably going to come into contact with this. It said there's 4 different races that we know of, and they've got these incredible technology, and it's real. As soon as UFO people found out that chapter existed, of course, they pulled it out. But that wasn't hazing. That was real. That's what they were being taught.
Yeah. And the last page didn't say psych?
Psych. No, it didn't.
Neener, I think it said.
Yeah, at the end. That's amazing. They pulled that, and you actually had a physical copy of that at some point, which is pretty rare, by the way. Well, I guess I'm just curious what you're going to do to continue to repent for your probing job.
How long?
Forever, you fucker. Forever.
Long?
But, what's next for you? You have a podcast, right?
Yeah. We got the Really with Tom and Dave, which we were kind of down for about 6 or 8 months, but we're gearing back up. We've recorded a few episodes, and we're planning to do some more coming up. Hoping to get you guys back on again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of for me hosting the podcast has been, aside from possibly maybe dragging a few other people into consciousness about the subject. It's been a really great opportunity for me to meet incredibly interesting people, hear amazing stories, and an excuse to do it. Because I don't know how I would have had a conversation with Mario Woods. Speaking of missile silos and UFOs, if I hadn't been doing a podcast. So I'm excited to get back to it.
I just know I did the last time I did a show with them. They come to Las Vegas, Dave and Tom. We need you for like an hour. I come over to see them. It was like 2.5 days later. I stumble out of this hotel suite. Oh my God!
You were given food. No, that was Not everyone gets that treatment.
That had some unexpected consequences that in the future we'll talk about.
Yes, that'll all become public soon. Yeah, some exciting things happening as a result of that.
Yeah, it's amazing. In retrospect, if you look back at the experiences you've had, such as when you said to me, "Oh, come hang out with the famous UFO guy. Don't see a UFO." And I know you claim you didn't say that.
I'm saying, look, you may have heard it that way, and I don't remember saying that. Maybe I said something like it, but I can guarantee if I was teasing you, it would have been better than that.
It's so disparaging.
Very funny.
Okay, no, but whatever. For the record,
like taunting the univerce, though. It was begging for something to intervene.
But it really was. But that's one of those things where we were just out there in this field or out on the road in the middle of the countryside, surrounded by like orange groves, and it was such a beautiful night. And again, from where we were, I could see all the commercial air traffic in the distance, and it just seemed like, here we are, you've dedicated your adult life to this, and I'm deep into this all of a sudden. Yeah. And that, neither of us has ever seen anything.
We're lucky to have seen it.
And I thought, I said, this would be a great night to see something. And then 30 seconds later, I didn't get to see it come in.
I said, it's very funny, you should be a comedian. Do you remember that part? But anyway, look, just seeing that, but I think we'll talk more about it later, but just if you look at your life in retrospect, you said the funniest thing last night. Actually funny. I want to repeat it. But it was like...
I've said thousands of funny things.
Okay, but this was great. So, but you look back at things in retrospect and the chain reaction of that moment with you and what that did. You said last night to me and George, so funny, you're like, seems like they're micromanaging. I just thought that was really funny.
NHI,
Yeah, no, it does feel that way. I mean, as a result, and again, what we're talking about obliquely will be public soon, but it does feel like that moment of you and I, because you and I, I would not have done a podcast if you and I hadn't seen that that craft, because we saw it, and I thought, well, look, I should talk about this I should go on Twitter and talk about it. Because in my mind, I thought a lot of people see stuff and they're afraid to talk about it.
Yes.
And maybe if I talk about it, other people will feel less afraid or at least feel less crazy or less alone. Mm-hmm. And so I got on, and what happened was like literally thousands of people started interacting with me and telling their experiences, some very similar to ours.
Mm-hmm. So similar craft?
Well, that's similar, but the similar experience, to me, like that similar experience of
talking about it.
Talking about it shows up, and then feeling like the craft was interacting with us in a way that it was, like that they felt like their responses didn't feel normal, didn't feel like they were responding properly to what they were saying.
That you were responding properly to what you were saying.
Yeah, that it wasn't. Yeah, like I did not respond to the thing we saw in any kind of a normal or natural way.
Right. We didn't scrape down and do a dance, and I didn't pull out my phone and all that.
We stood very quietly for the whole event, and it was a long event.
Right. I thought it would be short though. I thought it was going to go away.
Well, and it was starting. All that was going through my head was, well, when it gets closer, it'll be something boring. As soon as it gets close enough, I'll be bored.
Good year.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I kept waiting for it, but then suddenly it's hanging in front of us, and once it's hanging in front of us, then I'm going in retrospect, going, it's kind of weird that I just stood there, and I didn't say anything, and not that I didn't say anything, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything. And even to this day, the memory of that event is completely devoid of emotional content.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty emotional guy, but I have no emotional content connected to the memory.
I didn't have it on the right setting. I was like, Dave, look right here. Like that. Like his memories. I only had the emotional memory.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, so it's gone. Yeah, so even now,
CIA always messes these up.
Yeah, so I have no emotional connection to the event in our lives.
Yeah.
I just have a very clear, rational sense of what I saw.
Yeah, it was astounding. I mean,
yeah,
it was just
it
incontrovertible moment.
Yeah, and that triggered me talking publicly about it. Triggered me starting to do the UFO podcast, and because my friend Tom, who I do the podcast with, he heard his wife said, his wife Christina goes, "Oh, Dave's on Twitter talking about UFOs.
He's worried about you."
And Tom goes, "Oh, maybe I should call him." and he did. He called me up and said, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm going, "Yeah. Why?" He said, "Well, I hear you're talking about UFOs and stuff." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well," and he said, "Okay, well, why don't we get together and have dinner?" Again, like an intervention. But we went out and had dinner up in Laurel Canyon, and by the end of the dinner, Tom's going, "Okay, we got to do something."
Podcast.
Yeah, and it was his wife Christina and my then wife Chrissy. It was they suggested that we do a podcast.
Wow.
So it's coming back again pretty soon.
Yeah, really. It'll be launching up. I think we're gonna. I think in August it's going to launch up again.
And you told us last night that season 5 of Fargo, you were terrific. That was a great role. You got murdered relentlessly, and you've told us that once you're murdered in that series, you don't get to come back in another season.
Yeah. Well, pretty much no one gets to come back because they do a whole new cast and story. Yeah. Sometimes a character. Well, there have been very few characters who've made like cameos in other seasons.
But not dead ones.
But not the dead. No.
The ghost of Foley.
That's too bad. That was great. That was great.
It's great. And I, it's my only big. No. I had a death scene in a really terrible movie. But I get to have a death scene, and I get to be murdered by my old friend John Hamm.
Well, it's definitely your only death scene with an eye patch.
True. Sure. Yeah, and tons of blood. Yeah, it was actually much gorier in when we shot it. They toned it down.
I was rooting for you. I said, "There's no way he's getting out of this alive." Leading up to it, and
no,
but maybe he'll pull out a gun and blast John Hamm and get out of there.
I know when I had dinner with Noah Hawley when I first got to Calgary to shoot, and I said, "Go on, just tell me," because I'd only read two scripts. I said, "Just tell me, am I going to die?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, great." I said, "Oh, good." And he said, "Do you want to know how?" I said, "Yeah, I want to know how." And he told me
blaze of gunfire.
Yeah, and he told me about it, and I thought, "Oh, that's going to be great."
Well, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I just wanted to touch base with you, and more importantly, with Joey.
Little Joey Ramone.
Joey, keep the streets of LA safe, Joey.
Yeah. He's an Instagram sensation.
He is good. Well, we'll touch base with you again, but thanks for being on Weaponized, man.
Thanks, man. It's great to see you both.
Talk to you.
Yeah.
That was our good friend Dave Foley, who I terrorized for making comedy and jokes about the UFO thing before he's, balls deep in it like he is now. But it's really always good to hang out with Dave Foley, and we did have that kind of experience together, the sighting of a UAP, which was pretty wild. So he's become a really good friend because we've just been through it together. Neat to talk with him.
Yeah, could you guys arrange so I get to see one of those sometime?
Yeah, you got to get away from Fiji and come hang out with me.
All the natives here, they see them all the time. By the way, a couple of things before we get into what's coming in September. A big event. Tim Phillips, who was the interim director of AARO, the guy who took the job after Sean Kirkpatrick had done such a wonderful job in that performance in that position. Tim Phillips, when he was downgraded to the deputy director under the new director, went on some podcasts and spilled some beans. I know he was quoted in that Wall Street Journal article, that series that we have talked about a couple of times, and it's hard to figure out where he is on the topic sometimes because it seems like it's all over the place. But, he said some very profound things, and he's fired as a result. We don't know exactly what the specifics were, what reason he was given, but I would imagine it was for speaking too much about a topic that they don't want their personnel speaking about.
Yeah, I imagine if you're an active AARO employee and you are saying things in your own way rather than representing the organization in a proper way and doing a bunch of podcasts, a lot of incorrect information that is verifiably incorrect. Yeah, I could see you being kind of considered a loose cannon, and it's time to stop you from doing that. I could see that.
On the other hand, I mean, it's nice to hear from people whose job it is to investigate this stuff. And maybe they make mistakes here or there, but I mean, aren't we supposed to be transparent? That's what we've been told for the past couple of years. And certainly under this administration, oh yeah, we're spilling all the beans. We're being transparent. This guy came out and said some things and it cost him his job. Transparency or not, I don't see much commitment to it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, obviously I don't know why he was let go after a long career, but, here's the offer. I would love to have him on Weaponized to talk just openly about what it is that he did, what his role is, because now he's off, he could probably talk about it. I just didn't feel like, great questions were asked of him at all times, and I think that his response separating, fact from opinion would be a very interesting way to interview him.
Yeah, I'm sure he can't speak about specific cases, certainly ones that are classified, which almost everything is. But there are big, broad strokes about the position, about the agency that he worked for that would really be interesting to dig into. We have to reach out to him and see if he'll come on.
Next thing I want to talk to you about is obviously Congress. I mean, that's what's happening in September, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. I've seen little posts here and there. And I do want to bring up a couple things. So first and foremost is Senator Rounds has kind of come out, and you've heard him talk a little bit. There was an interview he did with our pal Matt Laszlo from Askapol. I think they were on like a train or something like that. But he asked them a little bit about, have you asked to see the materials? Because he said a lot of people did come forward and testify to him about materials they were working on where they didn't know where they were from. I think this has been well documented, so I'm just going to say it. I think Senator Rounds should ask to see Lockheed's Plant B6 complex in Burbank, California, 2300 Empire Avenue. And then I would like to, maybe he should go ask to see Northrop Grumman's Plant 42 in Palmdale, which is 3520 East Avenue, M Street. I mean, look, the addresses are there. Like, he could ask to find out what's going on at those two locations with the exact hardware that the Disclosure Act, was written about. Do we have materials that they suspect to be NHI? Well, those are two places you can go look. He should do that, don't you think?
Yeah, and he should get there before the moving vans back up, which they're probably on their way right now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, I think it was Hal Puthoff that went on Joe Rogan podcast and said we have about 13 craft or components of craft that are spread out. And I would take that to the bank. I suspect Hal Puthoff knows what he's talking about, at least on those 13. So it's not like a secret anymore. This is, we had a huge legislation about it. We talked about contractors. We talked about the DIA trying to obtain some of the materials from Lockheed through the vice president of Lockheed. All of that is correct information, and it's out there in the public, and I think it can and should be investigated. I don't see the issue now with people doing that. But
a lot going on in Congress. So the Senate side is kicking around the resurrection of the UAP Disclosure Act. It's not attached to the defense budget, obviously, but it could be a standalone legislative effort on their part, and it looks like it's got some momentum behind it. On the House side, of course, we've been hearing about another hearing. There was going to be one in July that didn't happen. I think that's a good thing in a sense that I'm not sure that they were really ready to go. They want to have good witnesses, people who have seen things with their own eyes. And I know that you and I have spoken with congressional staffers setting this up, you way more than me, trying to help them put on the best hearing that they can have, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say right now. I don't want to, obviously, they have a process that they should go through, and I want to support that. So I have said on the news, how about this? I've said on the news that I've got 3 firsthand whistleblowers. And that's just 3 out of the many people that we've talked with. But these are 3 we've actually already filmed with. And some of them are not known to even in small circles. So we are going to report on their accounts. We're going to do that. But I think that Congress has an opportunity right now, and Representative Luna, Representative Burleson have been very open and public about this over the last, couple months. And I think it's appropriate for me to say that we have provided those individuals for pre-vetting and have walked through the entirety of their exposures to information regarding UAP, and that numerous of these individuals have close proximity, right? Firsthand close proximity to operational UAP in their military role and capacity. I mean, look, I want to hear from them on the public forum under oath. So if I want to hear from them, I'm sure the public will too. Now, when we get into people that actually worked on the programs, as the Congress people have said, I'm not saying anything new right now. As the Congress people have said, it's been difficult. Now, why has it been difficult? I want people to understand this process a little bit. When you have national security people on these calls and you're trying to talk about what should be divulged to Congress behind closed doors compared to in public hearings, some of the people in active programs, besides themselves, besides their families, unless they're getting threatened, which some of them have perceived threats, but I would say actually documented by law enforcement threats, which is really crazy. And people will hear about it because we've already recorded with them. It's difficult to move people from that category of being, I want to do the right thing for the United States of America. Congress wants to know. They should know this. Why don't they know this? We'll tell them in a private briefing. Great. I facilitated so many of those. It's ridiculous. What I care about is that the American public gets to hear these stories and they get to look over this information. So making that leap of people with firsthand experience, which again, I defined as pinned up on my X account. You can go read it. Those are the quality of the witnesses that you and I have brought to them. But getting people that have been inside of craft or that know about, I don't know, how we've been able to breach the hull of a craft, getting people like that to talk in front of Congress in a public setting is much more difficult. However, not impossible. So I think that what we do is have a series of hearings, but I'm not in control of that. What I can do is nominate people, give their credentials, our pre-vetting for years, let Congress know these people are coming out anyway, no matter what, already filmed, and see if they want to do it in that way under oath for the public. So that's what I'm fighting for, George. I'm doing my best. It's a lot of work, but I'm working with some great people in Congress and just providing them vetted individuals that they can really look into what it is that they experienced.
Yeah, I think the people in UFO world tend to forget the human side of this. They just demand, hey, look, step forward. If you're a whistleblower and you know this stuff, come on, let's have it. Go on the record, appear before Congress, as if that is not going to change their lives. The best they can hope for is not being prosecuted. But, that step changes your life forever. They have wives, husbands, families, kids, jobs, some of them anyway, and it puts all that at risk. You know what has happened to other whistleblowers. They've been slimed and exposed. People go looking for dirt. Anything under a rock in their lives, in their past, gets exposed. Even if everything goes well in their testimony, and if they can keep their job, not get fired, not lose their clearance, there's a price to be paid for coming forward for this. And it changes your life forever. And not everyone wants to do that. Even though they do want to share the information, they want Congress to know, that's a big step for regular people to do, people who are not in the public eye.
I can imagine that I would be as frustrated as you hear that people are, like, show me the evidence, just say it all, put it all out. I do understand that, but I think from our perspective in navigating this, we see the train wreck that occurs to people's lives. One example, Matthew Brown, like he has a lot to say, not just about UAP. He took a huge risk coming on with us. It is, I'm sure, this horrible feeling to be sitting back being like, am I going to testify? Like, am I going to testify to what I risked everything for coming forward? I've encouraged Matt, like he should do a Substack or something like that to get his thoughts out. But I think the way for him to do it would be first and foremost, does the public want to hear him talk at Congress? Representative Burleson just made a comment saying that he's talked with Matt Brown and that he finds him what he finds him credible, that he believes that he was exposed to the things he says he was. In which case, as an American patriot, I'd be like, yo, put him up there. Let's hear what he has to say about UAP, and let's get it on the record under oath. It might be a small step, right? Because we've heard he's been on our show, and I submitted the Immaculate Constellation stuff to Congress, but you haven't heard it from him directly under oath in Congress. So I think there is this play right now for like, how do we bring these people in safely, especially the other witnesses that you and I brought forward? How do we bring them safely to testify? And what is the scope that we're going to have them testify about that doesn't endanger national security? So I hope we hear more from Matthew Brown, but I hope that first it's in Congress. Then I hope he does his Substack thing and starts putting out information, because he has a lot to talk about, like AI and all this stuff, which is not what you and I investigate. But I think it's important that you give voice to people. And look, man, George, if even some of these people that you and I brought to Congress, even if one of them is able to testify, I think that's a huge step forward. So let's see what they do. I support them. I'm supporting Congress. Let's see if they can do it.
One last point about the whistleblowers. The ones that we know and have talked to, whose names are not public yet, they've worked their entire adult lives in classified programs. Their clearance is their ticket. It's their meal ticket. It represents their mortgage payment, how they feed their families. That's all they've done for the most part. And when they come forward, that ticket gets yanked. They lose it. They will never work in classified settings again. Never will work for a government agency. They will pay a price for that. What are they supposed to do? How do they pay the bills? Yeah, sure. Come on forward. Spill all the beans. Tell us what you know. Good luck in the future. There's no program that helps those folks. There's no money that helps support them while they try to find other kinds of jobs outside their expertise, what they've done for their whole professional lives. So I hope people will keep that in mind as we move forward. And I hope that we get some update on when the next hearing might happen. There have been a couple of dates that have been suggested, and there have been movements of planned hearings, but I think it's near. Something else that's near, by the way, is something that you and I experienced firsthand. It was the Storm Area 51 event that we talked about before, and there was a documentary effort, and they interviewed both of us, and they had a plan for what that documentary was going to be on a very unique sort of event, and now there is a new plan. What do you know about that?
Yeah, this is like 5 years ago. So we got calls from producers and they were like, we're going to make a Storm Area 51 movie. And out of self-defense, I was like, okay, well, I'll interview for it. And I dragged you into it. And it was interesting. It was proposed to us that it was going to be a movie about it. And what happened? I ended up getting this like mental health document from Netflix basically saying, don't read the internet. I was like, what is this about? What is this about? So I called in. Turns out the title's changed. So now it's called Trainwreck, Stormed Area 51. Now, what's interesting, I love the Trainwreck series, actually. They have these hilarious ones like Poop Cruise and like Project X about a house party that got out of control. So I do wish it luck. I do hope it's going to get a lot of viewership. I suspect it will. It's literally launching on Netflix like the 28th or 29th. So next week it's launching. But I didn't see anything that I said in the trailer. And I know in these things, they got to have like some drama. So I'm really interested whether or not they tell it like it is, or they tell it like, so that they can get more viewership on Netflix. But everybody will see it along with me next week. Trainwreck, Storm Area 51. And as long as they don't lie or chop up and Frankenstein my words, so that it is something I didn't say, like I'm happy that they're doing something on it.
Well, it was a wild, crazy event that blew up and then imploded. So there's a lot of material there to work with in a good-hearted nature. I wonder if you're the villain.
Yeah, I do wonder about that because again, I'm going to say it's not my fault. We made a joke about it. So me and Rogan and Lazar and you were all pointing fingers at each other, making a joke like, whose fault was it? It was nobody's fault. It just got out of control. Some kid made a meme and went crazy. And then I started calling up people to perform. And you had a friend out there and it was farther away. And we tried to kind of just help guide it so that it ended up being something fun, which it was really cool. And it wasn't like what it could have been. So I think that's the success. It showed in pop culture the interest that was sparked from you interviewing Bob Lazar back in 1989. I mean, come on. That's how people know about UFOs in Area 51. So we kind of had to be a part of it. You as a news guy out there, with your microphone, that was pretty cool. But we had a fun time. And David Foley was there. So I don't know how much they're going to show because really nobody filmed what we were doing but us. It'll be interesting to see how they portray it. The train wreck of Storm Area 51. It'll be interesting.
I'll watch. One other thing to plug before we go. Our friends, the Cosmic Cowboys, Lord Huron, dropped a new album a couple of days ago. It's terrific. I listened to it. Anybody who's a fan of that band or anybody who doesn't know that band yet, you should check that out. Really thoughtful music, unlike anything else that's on the radio or anywhere else. I hope people will check that out. It's called The Cosmic Collector, Volume 1, Lord Huron. Check it out. Jeremy, talk to you later.
Last thing, I got to plug something too. I got some friends on the East Coast. It's like a breakaway investigation, like a breakaway civilization. I got a call from a friend said, some of us broke away from MUFON and we're calling it, coolest title ever, the International UFO Bureau. So I looked them up. They got a website, internationalufobureau.com. And one of my friends, who's a great detective, like a homicide detective, is involved with it. So I think it's going to be a cool endeavor. I don't know much about it, but I just want to let people know, go to the website because one of my pals is involved with that. So anyway, George, listen, go back to Fiji. Have a great vacation. I won't pull you back for Weaponized for at least 6 more days. So don't worry about it.
Oh, look, here comes my Mai Tai. Got to go.